Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling someone you think you know, but maybe not quite like this, William Shakespeare. Forget the dusty textbooks for a second. Think of him as, maybe, the original giant content creator, a real trailblazer. And his stuff. It's still everywhere, movies, TV, even the way we talk. But there's this kind of mystery, isn't there? How did this guy, writing hundreds of years ago from what seems like a pretty normal background, create stories that Hollywood still uses? And words we use every single day. So our mission in this deep dive is to dig into that. We're going to unpack the surprising bits using the sources you've brought and figure out what makes him still so relevant.
It really is remarkable. I mean, he's the most reinterpreted playwright on the planet. His plays, they're in over 100 languages.
Yeah.
Stage, film, TV series, you name it. And his impact on English, just huge. Hundreds of words, phrases, he basically cooked them up, and we still use them without a second thought.
Right. So if he were around now, he wouldn't be writing for, dusty archives. He'd be more like Disney or Marvel, maybe, taking stories people already kind of knew, history even, and just blowing them up into blockbusters everyone wanted to see. And the amazing thing was, it wasn't just for the fancy folks. It was for everyone. He made really complex stories feel, accessible and fun for all sorts of people.
Absolutely. And you can still see that influence so clearly. The sources mention over 1,500 films inspired by his work. Think about West Side Story, that's pure Romeo and Juliet, right?
Oh, definitely.
Or 10 Things I Hate About You. Classic teen movie. That comes straight from The Taming of the Shrew. But here's one that might surprise you. The Lion King.
Really? The Lion King?
Yeah, the original story. It's basically Hamlet. Brother kills king, takes the throne, marries the queen, son gets banished, comes back for revenge. It's all there.
Wow, I never actually connected those dots quite so directly. That's incredible. So what was it about his storytelling? What made those basic plots so adaptable? I mean, teen comedies, animated movies, they've lasted over 450 years, even in places like Thailand. His stories, even specific lines, are still translated and loved. What's the secret sauce there?
That's a really good question. And yeah, we should definitely come back to that because it gets to the heart of his genius, I think. But maybe first, let's just look at the man himself. William Shakespeare, born in Stratford-upon-Avon. His family was actually fairly comfortable. Father was a glover. Mother came from a landowning family. So, not exactly poor. He got a decent education, learned Latin, that sort of thing, even though he didn't go to university. Loved books, apparently. And he picked up a lot of knowledge just listening to travelers' stories.
And there's that funny detail about his birthday, right? We don't actually know the exact date. It's usually celebrated on April 23rd, but that's just guessed from his baptism record on April 26th, based on how things were done back then.
Exactly. Then a pretty big event early on. When he was only 18, he got Anne Hathaway pregnant. She was 26.
Right.
Led to a quick wedding, naturally. The daughter Susanna arrived just 6 months later. Then they had twins, Hamlet and Judith.
And then he heads off to London to the theater scene. But this is where that whole mystery cropped up for a long time, didn't it? For ages, some scholars were like, was this guy even real? Or maybe Shakespeare was just a pen name for someone else because, how could someone with his background, not university educated, write with so much detail about, say, court life or foreign cities he'd likely never visited? There weren't many personal records either.
Yeah, that fueled a lot of speculation. How could this guy from a small town know all that stuff? Even his manuscripts had, inconsistent spellings. But that whole authorship question, it's pretty much settled now. The general view is, yes, he was real. He likely worked very closely with the acting troops, collaborating, tweaking the plays as they went along. And remember, before the plays really took off, he was writing poetry, too. Sonnets and things, practicing his craft.
Okay, so let's picture the scene then. Elizabethan England. What was the theater world like that he stepped into?
England was booming under Queen Elizabeth I, right? More money around, arts flourishing. But Shakespeare didn't just invent theater overnight. It had a history. Morality plays back in the Middle Ages and so on.
Right. And the playhouses themselves, like the Globe. Imagine this huge, round building open to the sky in the middle, holding maybe 2,000 or 3,000 people. Huge. And a key thing, men played all the parts, even Juliet or Lady Macbeth.
All men. Wow.
Yeah. Which, you could argue, actually pushed him as a writer. He couldn't rely on, seeing a woman express female emotion visually in the same way. He had to rely purely on the language, the character psychology to get those deeper human truths across. Made his writing stronger, perhaps. And the sets, super minimal. Sometimes just a sign saying Verona or Egypt. The focus was all on the words, the performance.
And the audience. Not like today's quiet, polite theater crowd, I gather. More like a football match. Shouting, cheering, booing, interactive. Oh, completely. Loud, rowdy, people eating, drinking, talking back to the actors. Imagine trying to do a quiet soliloquy with all that going on.
Yeah, makes you realize how powerful those words must have been to cut through.
And the seating was fascinating too. You had tiers of benches, but the cheapest spot was standing room, right in the middle, the pit, open to the weather. Cost just a penny. So literally anyone could afford to go. Laborers, prostitutes, side by side with nobles in the better seats, the most expensive seats. Front right. Not just for the best view of the stage, but so everyone could see you being important. You could even pay extra for a cushion.
Huh. So it wasn't just a theater, it was a place to be seen, a real social hub. And you mentioned the language. New words and phrases from his plays would catch on, like social media trends today.
Exactly like that. They'd become popular slang almost overnight. It's amazing how much his plays shaped everyday English, often in ways we don't even notice anymore. So, thinking about his career path, he starts out freelance, right? Just writing for whoever would buy his work. But then he gets famous, joins the Lord Chamberlain's men. That was the big deal. They had royal sponsorship. That meant more stability, regular income. He could focus more on writing, even bought property back in Stratford. Formed at court a lot, especially later under King James I.
And later on, because people just wanted more Shakespeare, he started recycling older plays, bringing them back. It's almost like he understood the idea of, evergreen content way back then.
Yeah.
Smart.
Definitely smart. And he was brilliant at giving the audience what they wanted. He'd take historical figures like Richard III, someone people knew, and dramatize their lives, make them relatable, even the villains, add that dramatic flair. It's not so different from what shows like The Crown do now, right? Taking history and making it compelling drama.
That's a great comparison. And he didn't just stick to England, did he? He took audiences, people who probably never left their own town, on these amazing trips in their imagination. Italy for Romeo and Juliet, Egypt for Antony and Cleopatra.
Yeah, it was escapism, adventure, history lesson, all rolled into one afternoon at the Globe. His plays tend to fall into roughly three buckets. First, the histories, like Richard III. And like you said, he could make even a villain like Richard seem kind of charismatic, understandable almost, often starting with a killer opening line. The source mentioned Richard starts by saying something like, okay, I'm evil, fate's against me, so I'm just going to go all out.
All right. That reminds me of something I read, how those opening lines in his plays, especially the tragedies, just grab you instantly. Set the whole mood. I am evil. Boom. No messing around.
Definitely. Then you have the comedies. Usually lighter, romantic, things end happily. The Merchant of Venice is one. That's the one with Antonio borrowing money from Shylock, the Jewish moneylender. The whole pound of flesh thing, if you can't repay. And then Portia comes in, disguised as a lawyer, and finds this clever loophole. So, the play definitely reflects the anti-Jewish attitudes of the time, too. There's that famous line about Mercy, King Rama VI in Thailand did this incredibly beautiful translation. The quality of mercy is not strained. It drops as the gentle rain from heaven. Just gorgeous. Beautiful. In another comedy, As You Like It, it feels almost like a modern rom-com series. People escaping to the forest, getting disguised, falling in love. Lots of witty banter. And finally, the tragedies. These are often seen as his deepest, most complex works, usually written later in his career. And, well, the main character usually dies. You've got Othello the general, consumed by jealousy, kills his wife, heartbreaking. Hamlet, which we mentioned, gave us The Lion King, that whole cycle of murder and revenge. Macbeth, the one actors get superstitious about, call it the Scottish play, witches, prophecy, Lady Macbeth trying to wash the imaginary blood off her hands. Iconic stuff.
Yeah, Macbeth. I heard this great point about its opening line. The witches say, "When shall we three meet again?" Just 7 words, but think about it. When implies future, shall definite plan. We three identifies the speakers. Meet the action, again, implies they've met before. This isn't the start. It's like a whole paragraph of setup in one tiny sentence. Just, wow, the economy of it.
That's a perfect example of his skill. Incredible efficiency. And don't forget King Lear. That's the one that apparently inspired the TV show Succession. Old King divides his kingdom between his daughters based on who says they love him most. It all goes horribly wrong, of course. Massive tragedy. But maybe the real genius, the reason these plays last, is that he leaves things open. He doesn't always give neat answers. Was Hamlet really mad or just pretending? Was Lady Macbeth always evil, or did ambition corrupt her? He lets you decide. And because it's ambiguous, you can set Macbeth in a modern kitchen, or reimagine it as a samurai story like Kurosawa did with Throne of Blood.
Ah, so the ambiguity is actually a feature, not a bug. It allows for constant reinterpretation.
Exactly. The core human problems are still there, but the setting, the interpretation can change with the times. That keeps it fresh.
And even though the original language can be tough for us now,
Yeah, 17th century English takes some getting used to.
there are good translations out there, like the Thai ones we mentioned by King Rama VI or Professor Nopamus. So it is accessible.
Which leads to another huge point. His works are public domain. They're over 450 years old. They belong to everyone now. Humanity's heritage, as the source puts it. That means anyone, you, me, anyone can put on a play, adapt it into a movie, write a song about it, remix it, whatever. No permission needed. That freedom is a massive reason why his work is still so alive.
So this incredibly productive writer, how did it end? His exit from the stage seems a bit sudden.
It is a bit mysterious. The Globe Theatre, his theater, actually burned down. During a performance of Henry VIII, apparently. A prop cannon started the fire.
Wow. Was anyone hurt?
No, luckily everyone got out okay. But after that, Shakespeare seems to have just stopped. He went back to Stratford, and for the last 3 years of his life, he didn't really write anything new, which was very unlike him. Maybe the fire took the passion out of him. We don't really know.
Strange.
And then the end itself was quite dramatic. He died relatively young, only 52. And get this, he died on April 23rd, the same day tradition says he was born, right after making his will earlier that same month.
Whoa. Died on his birthday. That just adds to the whole legend, doesn't it?
It really does.
And a last little fun fact about his name. Apparently, he spelled it lots of different ways himself.
Yeah, something like 20 different spellings have been found from his lifetime. It was only after he died, when his friends put together that big collection of his plays, the First Folio, that the spelling Shakespeare got standardized. So if you ever forget how to spell it, you're in good company.
Huh. Good to know.
And just to loop back to the language impact quickly, those sources mention about 1,700 words first appearing in print in his works. Now, he didn't necessarily invent all of them, but maybe around 400 were genuinely coined by him, just because he needed the right word for his poetry or rhythm.
Like what? Any examples?
Yeah, words like uncomfortable, fashionable, well-educated, and amazingly, advertising.
Advertising, seriously.
Seriously. And think about common phrases we use all the time. Cold-blooded, it's Greek to me, I have seen better days. All Shakespeare. People use them constantly without realizing where they came from.
Incredible. So pulling all this together, what are the big takeaways, lessons we can learn from the Bard today?
Well, the first one I think is about creativity itself. Shakespeare was relentless. For 30 years, he kept creating, kept evolving, kept pushing his storytelling. Never just did the same thing over and over. That's huge for anyone creating content today, right?
Yeah.
Always strive to improve, innovate, don't get stuck.
That's a great point for creators, always evolving. But then, the second lesson seems almost the opposite in a way. It's about feeling. As an artist, he seemed to really lean into life, the good, the bad, the joy, the pain. He let himself experience it all deeply. And then he turned those powerful feelings into his art. In our world, everything's so fast, maybe we need that reminder. Take time to reflect, to really feel things, even if it doesn't seem productive. That's where the genuine stuff comes from.
Beautifully put. You need that raw material of lived experience. And maybe the biggest lesson, tying back to why his work lasts 450 years, it's that openness. Enduring art, the kind that becomes a real legacy, has to be open. Open to being reinterpreted, reimagined, even criticized. It can become a rap song or an anime or a video game because there isn't some central authority saying, no, that's wrong. This is the sacred text. That very openness makes it truly humanity's heritage. Everyone gets to own a piece of it, play with it, keep it alive. That's how it survives for centuries.
That idea of openness as the key to longevity, that really makes you think, doesn't it? How could we apply that to other parts of our culture, other legacies, to keep them alive and relevant for the future? Well, this has been fascinating. We've only scratched the surface of Shakespeare's world, of course, but hopefully we've shed some light on why he still matters so much.
Absolutely, and I'd really encourage anyone listening to explore his plays. Don't be intimidated by the language. Check out those translations we mentioned, or just find the text online. They're free.
Yeah, dive in yourself. Continue your own deep dive. Maybe you'll find something completely new or disagree with something we've said today. What's your take on the Bard?
Because ultimately, it's that ongoing conversation, that engagement and reinterpretation that keeps these cultural treasures truly vibrant for all of us.